Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they look weak, and in the eyes of power, perception is reality. In this video, we'll break down the 3 psychological weaknesses that make you a target in the world of influence, ambition, and control, and how to eliminate them before they destroy your potential. Let's begin. Weakness number 1. The appearance of power is power in the grand theater of human affairs. Power is seldom about truth, it is about appearance. The man who looks like a ruler is more likely to rule than the one who merely thinks like one. In the court of kings, the throne is not given to the most virtuous, the most skilled, or even the most intelligent. It is seized by the one who convinces the room that he belongs there, and that belief, whether rooted in truth or fabrication, becomes reality. The fatal error made by many ambitious men is that they assume competence will be recognized, that skill will naturally be rewarded, and that strength speaks for itself. But the world is not designed for fairness. It is designed for survival, and survival in society is predicated on perception. You may have strength, but if you look unsure, you will be tested. You may have brilliance, but if you carry yourself like a servant, you will be treated like one. In every social hierarchy, from empires to boardrooms to schoolyards, humans are wired to detect weakness before they detect worth. We do not look for depth, we look for dominance. Before a single word is spoken, we scan posture, expression, eye contact, tone of voice. And we do so unconsciously, instinctively. Our brains are still tribal, still calculating whether this man in front of us is a threat, an ally, or a disposable tool. So what happens when you carry the posture of uncertainty? You become prey. You attract challengers, manipulators, and opportunists. They may smile in your face, but in their minds, they are calculating what you offer and how easily they can take it. They do not hear your ideas, they see your hesitation. They do not feel your potential, they sense your fear. And once they decide that you're unsure of yourself, they know you will not defend what's yours. Because hesitation is not neutral, it is an invitation. An invitation to pressure, to mockery, to betrayal. Let's be clear, you don't need to be arrogant to project power, but you do need certainty. Confidence is not about always being right, it is about acting as if you deserve to decide. And people will follow that, not because they've analyzed your track record, but because they crave leadership, and you look like you know where you're going. This illusion, this psychological theater begins with the body. The spine straightened, the shoulders back, the eyes are steady, not frantic, the voice slowed, not rushed. Every part of your frame must communicate. I do not chase. I do not beg. I will not wait for permission. You speak because you've decided. You move because you've chosen. And if the room does not agree, you let them feel the weight of your will. But certainty is not born overnight. It must be trained. Every gesture, every tone, every word must be refined through discomfort. You must repeatedly place yourself in situations where silence tempts you, where fear whispers and still you speak. Not because you have no fear, but because you refuse to obey it. The man who waits to feel confident before he acts will never act. The man who decides to appear confident while he acts becomes a force. Understand this, power is never static. It is always shifting. And in every interaction, whether with a stranger, a rival, or even a friend, you are either gaining power or giving it away. When you lower your gaze unnecessarily, when you speak with apology in your tone, when you let another man interrupt you unchecked, you are signaling that your position is negotiable. And what is negotiable will be negotiated down. Relentlessly, your power begins with your internal conviction, but it only becomes real when others believe it. Therefore, your image must be curated like a weapon, not a mask, a message, a living declaration that says, I am not to be trifled with. This doesn't mean shouting. It doesn't mean aggression. It means gravity, the calm, still presence that makes others second guess their assumptions before they test you. Consider history's most feared rulers. Many of them were not large in stature, nor were they loud. Their power came from presence. Their enemies hesitated because they could not read them. Their allies respected them because they never flinched, and their rivals were paralyzed by one recurring thought: if he's not afraid, what does he know that I don't? This effect, the aura of dominance, is not reserved for royalty. It is accessible to any man who controls his signal, because power is contagious. Once others see you as powerful, they begin treating you accordingly. Their respect reinforces your posture. Your posture reinforces their respect, and the loop begins. But it starts with one decision: to remove the signs of doubt from your behavior. That means eliminating filler speech. No more, I think, I'm not sure, or maybe that's just me. Every time you preface your ideas with doubt, you shrink your influence. You are not offering options, you are leading. Speak as if your words are facts, and if someone wants to challenge them, let them earn the right to do so. It also means controlling your reactions. Nothing exposes a man like overreaction. The easily offended, the overly defensive, the perpetually emotional, they show their cards before the game even starts. A man who cannot regulate his reactions is not feared, he is predicted. And the predicted man is the easiest to remove. Remember, people believe what they see, not what they're told. So if you move like a king, they will assume you are one. If you speak like your words shape events, they will bend around them. And if you walk into a room with quiet certainty, they will begin to question their own position before they ever question yours. There is a dangerous modern myth that tells young men to be themselves, that authenticity alone will earn respect. But the truth is far more brutal. The world does not respect your inner potential. It respects the version of you that shows up under pressure, the version that performs, not because he's perfect, but because he refuses to be small. You will be tested. That is the nature of the game. Others will probe your boundaries, question your confidence, and attempt to provoke you. This is not personal. It is natural. In every hierarchy, men are sorted by strength, not the strength they possess, but the strength they present. And when the moment comes, the test is not whether you feel ready, it's whether you act like you are. You may feel chaos inside. You may feel the storm of fear, anxiety, doubt, but your enemies should only see calm. The more they throw at you, the less you should react. The less you react, the more they question. And when doubt creeps into their mind, you have already won, because the real contest is not physical and it's not intellectual. It is psychological. The man who controls the other's sense of reality controls the outcome, no matter the battlefield. This is why rituals of preparation matter. Before every critical encounter, prepare your presence. Not your script, your presence, your tone, your tempo, your stillness. These are the weapons you carry. Learn to control your breath, speak less, listen more, hold eye contact longer than comfort allows. Let silence do the talking when words are not necessary, because the more others talk, the more they reveal, and the less you reveal, the more powerful you become. There is no neutral ground. In every domain, relationships, business, politics, someone is winning the perception war. And if that someone is not you, then by default you are losing, even when you mean well, even when your intentions are pure, even when you would rather avoid conflict altogether. None of it matters if the signal you send out is, I am unsure. To change your fate, you must change your signal, not your soul, your signal, because the world doesn't reward the silent genius, the kind-hearted servant, or the well-meaning dreamer unless they appear formidable. You don't need to lie, but you do need to frame yourself, and framing is not deception, it's discipline. The discipline to train how you are seen before the world decides for you. Weakness number 2. Excessive mercy breeds contempt. Mercy is the virtue most praised and most punished. In theory, it is seen as noble, a sign of moral strength. a divine quality that elevates man above beast. But in the cold mechanics of power, unmeasured mercy is not seen as strength, it is registered as softness. And softness in leadership is a crack in the wall, a signal that the fortress can be breached. The leader who gives without limits, who forgives without caution, who prioritizes kindness over order, creates not loyalty, but opportunism. His mercy is not interpreted as love. It is seen as lack of resolve, and those under him, even those who once admired him, will begin to drift, because the one who cannot punish cannot protect, and the one who will not protect is useless to follow. There is a profound difference between strategic mercy and emotional mercy. The former is a tool, the latter is a trap. The ruler who pardons with calculation, who forgives only when it strengthens his control, commands respect. But the man who spares out of guilt, out of indecision, or out of weakness, teaches his enemies that there are no consequences. He breeds parasites instead of allies, traitors instead of followers. This is one of the most brutal truths of authority. The more merciful you are without teeth, the more you invite betrayal. Those who should fear your response begin to test your patience. They push boundaries. They disregard your word. And soon, the line between order and chaos fades, not because you lacked wisdom, but because you lacked wrath. People romanticize the idea of the good king, the ruler who forgives all, who punishes none, who leads through love alone. But such rulers do not survive. They are remembered only because of how quickly they were replaced. History is littered with noble men who lost everything because they refused to draw blood when necessary. To be clear, cruelty for its own sake is weakness disguised as strength. The tyrant lashes out not from power, but from insecurity. But the wise ruler does not need to be cruel to be feared. He simply needs to be decisive. And decisive men understand this law. When the time comes to punish, it must be swift, clear, and unforgettable. The wound must be deep enough that no one else considers crossing the line. Excessive mercy sends the opposite message. It tells the court that rules are optional. It whispers to your rivals that you can be manipulated. It assures the disloyal that their betrayal will go unpunished. And worst of all, it signals to your loyal followers that their obedience means nothing because you treat the disobedient just the same. This is the hidden cost of mercy. It does not simply embolden your enemies, it demoralizes your allies. When the ones who sacrifice for you see that you reward rebellion with forgiveness, they begin to question the value of their loyalty. If the traitor is embraced and the faithful are ignored, then allegiance becomes a fool's game, and your inner circle begins to rot, not from hatred but from quiet disappointment. Mercy then must be earned, not given as a default. It must serve a purpose. If a man has erred but proves his value, if his mistake was made from ignorance rather than malice, and if his return strengthens the throne, then a calculated pardon may secure his loyalty forever. But if you forgive every insult, every failure, every betrayal, you are not leading, you are pleading, and the throne does not plead, it commands. The psychology behind this is simple. Human beings, despite what they claim, do not respect what comes without effort. We value what is scarce, what is guarded, what costs us something. When mercy is too abundant, it becomes cheap, and when it is cheap, it is taken for granted. But when it is rare, when people must earn your forgiveness, then even your kindness becomes a form of control. To rule effectively, you must understand fear, not as a tool of terror, but as a foundation of order. Without fear, your words carry no weight, your commands are merely suggestions, and your enemies sleep well at night. But when there is a quiet understanding that disobedience has consequences, not threats, not tantrums, but real, immediate consequences, then your presence shapes behavior. This is why the wise ruler does not over-explain, does not beg, and does not repeat himself. He does not argue with those who defy him. He removes them cleanly, quietly, publicly if necessary, because punishment is not just about the one being punished, it is a signal to everyone else. A visible line drawn in blood that says, "This is how far you can go and no further." Contrast this with the leader who tries to be everyone's friend. He thinks he is building trust, but he is building confusion. His people don't know where the boundaries are, because every time they're crossed, nothing happens. He may still hold the title, still wear the crown, but his power erodes with every pardon. Soon, he is surrounded not by supporters, but by scavengers smiling in his face, waiting for the moment he is too weak to matter. True leadership requires a level of coldness, not cruelty, not sadism, but clarity. The clarity to recognize when leniency becomes poison. The clarity to prioritize the health of the kingdom over the comfort of the individual. The clarity to understand that some must fall so that others will stand in line. There is also a time factor at play. The longer you delay punishment, the less effective it becomes. Justice postponed is not mercy, it is hesitation. And hesitation weakens your authority more than any enemy could. If someone defies your rules, betrays your trust, or threatens your position, and you do nothing, you are teaching them and everyone else that rebellion is low risk. So you must act, but your actions must be controlled, measured, and final. Do not punish twice. Do not reopen old wounds. One strike, clean, without emotion, and then silence. Let the court digest what happened. Let them come to their own conclusions. They will fill the silence with fear, and fear, properly placed, maintains order better than 1,000 speeches. Another danger of excessive mercy is that it weakens your image beyond your immediate domain. Outsiders watch how you treat your own. Rivals observe how you discipline your circle. If they see tolerance where there should be fire, they will sense vulnerability. And power, like blood in water, attracts sharks. Your mercy becomes their strategy. Your softness becomes their opportunity. You must also be aware of those who exploit mercy as a tool. There are men who provoke you on purpose, knowing you are kind. They test your boundaries repeatedly, confident that you will forgive them again. These are not careless subordinates, they are calculated parasites. And the more you spare them, the stronger they grow. Until one day, they no longer need your mercy because they've taken your position. These people cannot be reasoned with. They interpret every pardon as weakness, every warning as bluff. To deal with them, you must abandon the illusion that they can be reformed. They cannot. They only understand removal, and until they are removed, they will poison your reputation, your influence, and your command. Understand this. Mercy is a weapon, but like any weapon, it must be wielded with precision. Too much and you disarm yourself, too little and you alienate your base. The art lies in knowing when to unsheath it and when to put it away. Those who receive it must understand its cost. They must know that it is not a given, that it is not owed, that it is the exception, not the rule. When you master this, your mercy becomes power, not because you are feared for your cruelty, but because you are respected for your discipline. Those beneath you will think twice before crossing you, not because they hate you, but because they know exactly what happens when lines are crossed. And that clarity, more than love or loyalty, is what keeps kingdoms intact. Weakness number 3, lack of strategic silence in the game of power. The loud man loses before he begins. The man who cannot hold his tongue exposes his strategy. He removes the element of uncertainty, which is the foundation of influence. He believes that clarity builds trust, that transparency earns respect. But the truth is far more cruel. The man who speaks too much teaches the world how to destroy him. Strategic silence is not just about withholding words. It is about control. The The silence of a disciplined mind carries more weight than the arguments of a desperate one. The man who can remain quiet in the face of chaos does not merely look composed, he becomes composed. And that composure radiates power. It unsettles enemies. It confuses rivals. It forces others to fill the void with their own assumptions, their own fears, their own miscalculations. The man who lacks this silence is naked in every room. He speaks before he thinks. He reveals his insecurities by trying to convince others he has none. He defends every accusation, responds to every challenge, and explains himself to people who never earned that privilege. In doing so, he devalues his own voice. His words become common, his presence becomes predictable, and predictable men are never feared, never truly respected. Understand that speech is not neutral. Every word you release is a transaction, a shift in power, a piece of your internal world handed over to someone else. And once they have it, they will use it whether you intend them to or not. Information is leverage, and leverage in the hands of others is risk. The more they know about you, the more they know how to move you. And if you are easy to move, you are easy to remove. The quiet man, by contrast, commands attention without needing to fight for it. When he speaks, people lean in. They know it means something. He doesn't speak to fill the air. He speaks to fill the silence with direction, and that discipline makes his voice heavier, more significant. In politics, in business, in war, the man who speaks less often is the man whose words echo longer. There is a reason intelligence agencies prize silence above all, not because they fear words, but because they know how words can be turned. Confessions are not always forced. They are volunteered by those who are too eager to be understood. The same applies to leadership. When you are constantly explaining your values, your goals, your decisions, you are not being transparent. You are being defensive, and defense is the position of the weak. A king does not explain his decree. A general does not justify his orders. Their silence is not ignorance, it is authority. When you leave your thoughts partially hidden, when you let others guess your intentions, you maintain control. Because uncertainty is power, not knowing what you will do next makes others hesitate, and hesitation gives you space to maneuver, to strike, to lead without resistance. Silence is also a filter. When you speak too much, you give attention to those who do not deserve it. You dignify gossip with response. You elevate criticism by acknowledging it. But when you remain silent in the face of pettiness, you make it beneath you. And when something is beneath you, it dies quietly. The crowd moves on. The critic shrinks. The enemy grows frustrated and reckless. There is great strategic value in letting your silence disturb people. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them invent theories about your next move. Let them overreach, trying to force a reaction. The more they guess, the more they reveal themselves, and the more you learn. Silence creates an imbalance. They feel pressure to speak. You feel no such need. In this imbalance, you gain information, insight, and advantage. Most people confuse being understood with being in control. They think sharing their every thought builds trust. But trust built on overexposure is fragile. Once someone knows the full map of your mind, they lose curiosity. Once they lose curiosity, they stop respecting you. Mystery holds value. It demands attention. It maintains power. The man who reveals everything becomes common. The man who reveals only what is necessary becomes rare. Consider how you enter a room. Do you announce your presence, explain your purpose, signal your ambition? Or do you let others sense it through your silence, your observation, your deliberate stillness? The man who listens more than he speaks learns the dynamics. He watches who leads, who follows, who flatters, who manipulates. And when he finally speaks, his words are not reaction, they are strategy. Silence is not passivity, it is restraint, a weapon held close, waiting for the right moment. The man who cannot wait, who speaks impulsively, who reacts emotionally exposes his weakness. He lets others control his state of mind. He becomes transparent, predictable, and eventually disposable. But the man who watches, waits, and speaks only when necessary is never outmaneuvered, because no one knows exactly what he's thinking, and that uncertainty is a shield. In negotiation, silence is pressure. The one who breaks the silence first is often the one who concedes. The more comfortable you are in the quiet, the more uncomfortable others become. They speak to escape the tension. And in doing so, they give away their position, they overpromise, they reveal desperation, and you, without saying a word, gain control. In conflict, silence is dominance. When accused, insulted, or provoked, the average man erupts. He scrambles to defend his image, to prove his innocence. But the wise man understands, the more you fight perception, the more real it becomes. By not reacting, by standing firm in silence, you suggest that the accusation is beneath you, that the insult doesn't even reach your level, and others, seeing your composure, begin to doubt the attacker instead. This discipline is difficult. The urge to speak, to clarify, to correct, is powerful, especially when your name is in others' mouths, when your decisions are questioned, when your silence is mistaken for weakness. But you must resist, because once you master silence, you control not just your own words, you begin to control others. When you do speak, speak with purpose. Every word should carry weight, not because you speak loudly, but because your silence has trained others to listen. There is no need to embellish, to over-explain. Speak simply, speak slowly, speak only when the effect of your words is greater than the value of keeping them unspoken. In personal relationships, too, silence matters. Constant emotional disclosure may feel like intimacy, but over time, it erodes polarity. The one who always speaks their mind loses mystery, and the one who loses mystery loses power in the dynamic. Maintain a part of yourself that remains unspoken, even to those closest to you. Not out of deception, but to preserve tension, depth, intrigue. Because when people know they don't know everything about you, they stay alert. They stay invested. In times of transition, whether ascending in status, shifting alliances, or facing betrayal, strategic silence becomes your strongest armor. Let others expose themselves while you stay unreadable. Let their eagerness betray them. Let your quiet presence breed doubt. If they do not know your plan, they cannot prepare for it. If they do not know your loyalty, they cannot rely on it. If they do not know your limits, they cannot test them. Even among allies, there must be silence, not mistrust but distance. Familiarity erodes hierarchy, and hierarchy is essential to order. If everyone around you feels they have full access to your thoughts, your decisions, your fears, then eventually they will stop treating you as a leader and begin treating you as a peer. And peers do not obey. Peers do not hesitate. Peers do not fear consequence. But the man who speaks selectively, who withholds just enough to keep others guessing, maintains the psychological distance that leadership demands. Silence also protects your identity. In a world obsessed with branding, with constant expression, with endless sharing, the man who remains partially hidden becomes fascinating. In the marketplace of attention, the one who says less becomes rare. And what is rare becomes valuable. You are not obligated to explain yourself to the world. You are not required to narrate your every move. The more you can serve, the more powerful your image becomes. When others ask questions, learn to answer with precision but not fullness. Give them what they need to know, not what they want to know. Let them fill in the blanks. Their imagination will often overestimate your strength, your reach, your plan. And that is the point. Power is not just what you hold, it's what others believe you hold. Strategic silence amplifies that belief. Do not confuse loudness with leadership. The world is full of noise men shouting to prove their relevance, to mark their territory, to mask their uncertainty. The man who does not participate in this noise signals that he operates on a different level, that he does not need to prove. He needs only to decide, and when he does, his decision will not be questioned because the silence that preceded it has already done the work. Power does not belong to the loudest, the kindest, or the most qualified. It belongs to the one who understands the game and plays without mercy, without apology, without illusion. You are marked not by your intentions, but by your signals. When you hesitate, they circle. When you forgive too freely, they push. When you reveal too much, they strike. The world is not fair. It is not sentimental. It is strategic. And if you do not master your posture, your discipline, your silence, you will be ruled by those who have. Fix these 3 weaknesses before the crown is taken from your hands, not by war, but by whispers, not by force, but by your own failure to look like a king. If you want power, look powerful. If you want loyalty, punish betrayal. If you want control, speak less and watch more. Because the man who appears strong, punishes wisely, and hides his mind, is already king.